One day somebody asked me, Jim, what's the secret to changing your life? And I said, well, the first step is deciding that your life actually needs to change, because nothing, and I mean nothing, gets better by accident. Your bank account doesn't grow by accident. Your health doesn't improve by accident. Your relationships don't deepen by accident. Life doesn't roll out the red carpet just because you showed up this morning. No life improves when you improve. And improvement begins the moment you make a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, not a passing thought, a decision. Now, the moment you decide, something remarkable happens. You draw a line in the sand. You say, this is who I've been, and this is who I refuse to remain. That single moment becomes the birthplace of discipline. And let me tell you, discipline is the doorway. You walk through that door, and there's a whole new life waiting on the other side. You walk past it, and you stay exactly where you've always been. Isn't that something? Two people with the same dream, the same idea, the same opportunity. One succeeds wildly, and the other barely moves a needle. The difference isn't in talent or luck. The difference is the disciplined one keeps the agreement they made with themselves. Discipline, my friends, is not punishment, though some people treat it like a trip to the principal's office. It's not the enemy. It's not the thing that steals your joy. In fact, discipline is the thing that protects your joy. It's the guardrail, the foundation, the structure that makes freedom possible. Without discipline, freedom becomes chaos. With discipline, freedom becomes achievement. Discipline builds your confidence. It builds your character. It builds your future. And once you understand that, you begin to welcome discipline not as a harsh taskmaster, but as a trusted guide. Now, let me give you something to think about as we begin this journey together. Most people don't fail because they aimed too high and missed. No. Most people fail because they aim too low and hit. And why do they aim low? Because aiming high requires discipline. It requires effort. It requires showing up again and again, even on the days you'd rather take a nap and call it ambition. But remember this, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And the day will come when you'll either say, I'm glad I did, or I wish I had. And discipline is the difference between those two sentences. So in this session, we're not going to talk about hacks or shortcuts or the magic secrets to instant success. No need for magic tricks. Your future isn't a rabbit to be pulled out of a hat. Your future is a result, a product of your philosophy, your behavior, and yes, your daily disciplines. Today, we begin building the blueprint that transforms desire into action and action into achievement. And the first brick we lay is this simple truth. Your life changes the moment you decide that discipline will no longer be optional, it will be your new standard. Welcome to the beginning of a life built on purpose, consistency, and personal responsibility. Welcome to the doorway. And now, together, let's walk through. Before we talk about habits, routines, schedules, before we talk about anything you can do, we have to talk about something far more important, what you believe. Because discipline doesn't begin in the morning when the alarm rings. And it doesn't begin when you lace up your shoes or pick up a book. No, discipline begins in the mind. It begins the moment you decide that your philosophy, your view of life, your understanding of responsibility, your sense of personal power must change. You see, every person operates from a philosophy, whether they know it or not. Some people have a philosophy of take it easy. Some have a philosophy of do just enough to get by. Some have a philosophy of wait until it hurts, then react. And others, well, they've discovered a better philosophy. A philosophy that says, I will do the work before the reward. I will plant in the spring. I will tend the garden in the summer. I will harvest in the fall. And I will prepare in the winter. That's the philosophy that makes discipline not just possible, inevitable. Now, here's a key idea. Your philosophy determines the size of your life. Not your circumstances, not your past, not your parents, not the government, not your friends, your philosophy. Why? Because your philosophy shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your disciplines, and your disciplines, those little choices you make every day, shape your entire destiny. It's all connected. Change the philosophy. And suddenly the whole chain shifts. It's like turning the handle of a giant machine. You move it 1 inch at the top, and the gears turn a mile down below. Let me give you an example. Some people say, well, Jim, I don't have time to read. Now, that's not a lack of time. That's a philosophy problem. Their philosophy says reading is optional. Someone else says, I don't have to plan my day. I'll just see what happens. That's not spontaneity. That's a philosophy problem. Another person says, I'll start when I feel ready. Well, you might be waiting until the year 2083 before that feeling shows up. Again, that's not delay. That's a philosophy problem. Disciplined people aren't different from you. They're not genetically superior. They've simply adopted a philosophy that says, what I do matters, what I repeat matters, and my future is shaped by my present behavior. Now, once you adopt this philosophy, something extraordinary happens. You stop arguing with your future self. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop believing the little stories you've been telling yourself. I'm just not disciplined. I'm not a morning person. I never finish what I start. Those aren't truths. Those are slogans. And you can retire them today. Instead, you begin to build a new internal language. You say, I am a person who follows through. I am a person who takes responsibility. I am a person who does what needs to be done. And let me tell you, once your philosophy shifts, discipline stops feeling like something you have to wrestle with every morning. It becomes something you live with every day. A strong philosophy creates strong decisions. Strong decisions create consistent disciplines. Consistent disciplines build an extraordinary life. That, my friends, is where discipline truly begins. Not in your hands, not in your calendar, but in your mind, long before the action ever starts. Now, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood ideas in the whole world of personal achievement, the idea of small disciplines. See, most people think success requires some heroic act. They imagine a grand moment, a thunderbolt, a spectacular leap. But that's not how life works. That's not how progress works. And that's certainly not how discipline works. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. 95% of your success will come from the things nobody sees you do. Not the big moments, not the dramatic choices, the small, quiet, daily disciplines that compound over time. You've probably heard me say it before. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. But here's the best part. You don't need to eat the whole orchard. Just 1 apple every day. Not 7 apples on Sunday. Not a bucket of apples when you feel guilty. 1 apple. Small, simple, consistent. Success is built the same way. Small disciplines practiced consistently create big results eventually. But here's the catch. It works in reverse too. Small errors in judgment repeated consistently create big regrets eventually. Let me show you how this works. Not reading a book tonight, that won't hurt you. Do it for 30 nights. Now you've lost a month of learning. Do it for 365 nights, you've fallen a year behind. Eating 1 donut today won't send your life into chaos. But eat a donut every day for 1 year, you've got a philosophy problem, not a pastry problem. Skipping 1 workout won't ruin your health. Skipping it 200 times? That's called a lifestyle. Small choices don't stay small. The magic and the tragedy is in the accumulation. Now let me give you something powerful. Small disciplines are easy to do and easy not to do. That's the whole battle. It's easy to walk around the block. It's easy to stretch for 2 minutes. It's easy to drink a glass of water. It's easy to read 10 pages. It's easy to write down 1 idea. But it's also easy to say, I'll do it tomorrow. And you know how it goes. Tomorrow has a habit of disappearing behind excuses. Tomorrow becomes next week, next month, next year, and finally, never. Now, here's the beautiful part. Small disciplines don't just build results, they build self-respect. Every time you keep a tiny promise to yourself, you prove that you can be trusted. You strengthen the internal contract between who you are and who you intend to become. And when you trust yourself, discipline becomes lighter, almost enjoyable. Because now you're no longer fighting with yourself, you're partnering with yourself. Imagine this. If you improve just 1% per day, in 1 year, you are 37 times better. Not 37%, 37 times. That's the compounding effect. Tiny changes, enormous consequences, but it all begins with one simple idea. Today I will do the small things, not tomorrow, not when life gets easier. Today, because the small disciplines you practice today will become the extraordinary results you celebrate tomorrow. And if you let them, these tiny steps will turn you into a person capable of doing things you once thought were impossible. Now let's move to one of the most overlooked and most powerful factors in building discipline: your environment and the people who live in it with you. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to stay consistent with ease while others struggle year after year, you don't have to look far. Just look around them. Some people have built a life that supports their discipline. Others have built a life that undoes their discipline the moment they try to start. Let me tell you something I learned early. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your environment contradicts your intentions, your environment will win every time. Jim Rohn said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." But let's add something to that. You are also the average of the 5 places you spend the most time in. Your desk, your kitchen, your room, your digital world, your circle of friends. These are not neutral spaces. They are constantly shaping you. Let's start with people. Some people inspire you to be your strongest self. Others encourage your weakest habits. Some celebrate your growth. Others feel threatened by it. You ever tell someone you're starting a new discipline, maybe reading every day, eating better, waking up early, and they say, "Oh, come on. Why so serious?" That's not a comment. That's a clue. A clue that this person prefers the old version of you, the one that doesn't change too much, because your change forces them to confront their own stagnation. And here's the truth. It's very hard to stay disciplined when you're surrounded by people who are committed to being undisciplined. Not because they're bad people, they're just not going where you're going. And you can't ask people who aren't headed to the mountaintop to cheer for your climb. They don't see the view you're after. So what do? You don't cut everyone off. No need to turn your life into a dramatic movie. You simply make a small shift. Spend more time with the people who lift your standards and less time with the people who lower them. Now, let's talk about spaces. Your environment should be designed to support your best decisions, not your worst impulses. If your desk is chaos, your mind will imitate it. If your kitchen is full of junk food, your discipline will dissolve at 11 p.m. If your phone is a factory of distraction, your focus will rot. If your bedroom looks like the aftermath of a hurricane, don't expect your habits to feel steady and peaceful. But here's the encouraging part. Small changes in your environment can create enormous changes in your discipline. Move the books where you can see them. Put the gym clothes where you can't ignore them. Remove the apps that waste your life. Clean the space where you think. Protect the space where you rest. Simple, reasonable, powerful. Because discipline does not survive well in a toxic environment, but it thrives in a well-prepared one. Let me tell you the real key. If you want to be a disciplined person, don't rely only on willpower. Willpower is a spark. Environment is the fuel. When your environment supports you, discipline becomes easier than ever. When it contradicts you, discipline becomes a full-time battle, and most people lose that battle before lunch. So choose wisely. Your friends, your surroundings, your spaces, your influences, your inputs, they are all part of your discipline system. And when you refine the world around you, the world inside you becomes stronger too. Now, once you've shaped your philosophy and refined your environment, it's time for one of the greatest breakthroughs you'll ever make, turning discipline from a personal battle into a reliable system. Because let me tell you, if discipline depends on how you feel each day, you are in trouble. If it depends on motivation, inspiration, or the weather, you're in trouble. If it depends on your mood, you're really in trouble. So what's the solution? Don't depend on motivation. Build a system. Motivation is a visitor. A system is a homeowner. When I started my journey, I learned something that changed my life forever. Either you run the day, or the day runs you. And the day doesn't mind running you. It's quite good at it. It has distractions, obligations, temptations, and interruptions lined up, all ready to steal your time. If you don't have a plan, the day becomes a thief. But if you have a schedule, the day becomes a servant. So how do you make discipline systematic? You do what successful people do. You plan. You prepare. You structure. You organize. You put discipline on the calendar instead of waiting for it to magically appear. Let's break this down. 1. Create a daily agenda. One of the simplest, most powerful tools you can ever use is a written agenda. Not a mental list. Not I'll remember. No, you won't. The mind is a wonderful creation, but it was never designed to hold the entire structure of your day. Put it on paper or put it in a planner and keep it simple. What must be done? When will I do it? How will I do it? If your day begins with structure, your discipline has somewhere to land. 2. Set clear, written goals. Jim Rohn said it plainly. Goals are like magnets. They pull you, but they only pull you if they're written, specific, visible. A foggy goal produces a foggy life. A clear goal produces clear direction. Write what you want. Write why you want it. Write when you intend to have it. Write who you must become to earn it. Now you're living by design, not by convenience. 3. Build rituals into your mornings and evenings. If you want to master discipline, you need 2 anchors. How you start the day and how you end the day. Your morning should not begin with chaos. Your evening should not end with confusion. A few simple rituals, a quiet minute, a plan review, a glass of water, a short stretch, a reading habit. These are the rails that keep your day steady. Not dramatic, not complicated, just steady. 4. Reduce decisions. Increase consistency. People think disciplined individuals have more willpower. They don't. They simply eliminate unnecessary decisions so they can focus their energy on important ones. They decide once and repeat the decision daily. That's a system. Eat similar breakfasts. Schedule similar work blocks. Commit to a specific bedtime. Wear simple clothing choices. Not to be boring, but to be effective. Every decision removed is willpower saved. 5. Break big tasks into manageable pieces. Discipline dies when tasks feel overwhelming. So make them smaller. A task that feels impossible becomes simple when broken down into steps. Books are read 1 page at a time. Businesses are built 1 customer at a time. Wealth is created 1 deposit at a time. Don't fight the whole mountain. Climb it step by step. 6. Use tools, journals, calendars, checklists. Tools are not signs of weakness, they are signs of wisdom. A pilot uses instruments. A surgeon uses equipment. A disciplined person uses systems. A journal to reflect. A calendar to plan. A checklist to follow through. These tools aren't just organizational, they're motivational. Every check mark is a win. Every note is progress. Every plan builds momentum. Here's the real magic. When you build a system, discipline stops requiring emotional effort. Your system carries you. Your structure guides you. Your plan directs you. And suddenly, what used to feel difficult begins to feel natural. You move from struggling with discipline to living in discipline. And that shift right there is what separates the wishful from the powerful. A disciplined life is not built by force. It is built by structure. 1 system, 1 plan, 1 day at a time. Now, let's move into one of the most important, most underestimated, and most challenging forms of discipline you will ever develop. Emotional discipline. Because you can plan your day perfectly, you can write your goals beautifully, you can structure your environment intelligently, and still fall apart the moment your emotions decide to take a little vacation from responsibility. Let me tell you something essential. If you cannot govern your feelings will govern your life. And feelings, while wonderful, are not always reliable employees. Some days they show up early and work overtime. Other days you can't find them anywhere. They're off hiding behind excuses, fear, or a donut. Jim Rohn used to say, we must learn to discipline our disappointments. And I'll tell you why. Because life is full of them. Discipline is not about controlling the outside world. Discipline is about controlling how you respond to the world. A person without emotional discipline wakes up and thinks, what do I feel like doing today? A disciplined person wakes up and says, what did I decide to do today? Those 2 lives produce very different futures. 1. Discipline means doing the right thing even when the emotion is wrong. You won't always feel like it. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel confident. You won't always feel ready. But emotional discipline teaches you something powerful. You act based on commitment, not mood. If you rely on mood, you will only work on the days you feel good. If you rely on discipline, you will work even on the days you feel nothing at all. That's maturity. And maturity is the soil in which greatness grows. 2, recognize that feelings are temporary, but consequences are persistent. Do you know how long a feeling lasts? Minutes, maybe hours, rarely days. But the consequences of surrendering to that feeling might last years. One moment of emotion can ruin a week of discipline. 1 week of discipline can transform a year of frustration. So, what's the lesson? Don't let short-term emotions decide your long-term future. 3, develop the discipline of pause. Most people react instantly. They let every emotion pull the levers of their life. But disciplined people pause. They breathe. They evaluate. They ask themselves, is this emotion driving me toward my goals or away from them? That tiny pause, that small gap between emotion and action is where wisdom lives. It's where regret is prevented. It's where clarity enters. 4, manage your inner conversation. We all have a voice inside. For some people, it's a cheerleader. For others, it's a critic with a megaphone. Emotional discipline is the ability to train that voice. When it whispers, quit, you answer, not today. When it says, you can't, you say, watch me. When it complains, you respond with responsibility. Your internal dialogue determines your external behavior. Jim Rohn said, you must stand guard at the door of your mind. Why? Because your mind is valuable territory and your thoughts are always building something. They're building discipline or they're building doubt. 5, learn the discipline of perspective. Emotion magnifies. It exaggerates. It makes small things feel big and big things feel impossible. Perspective shrinks things back to size. A setback isn't the end. A failure isn't your identity. A delay isn't a denial. A challenge isn't a curse. It's a classroom. Emotional discipline lets you say, this is difficult, not destructive. This is uncomfortable, not unbearable. This is inconvenient, not impossible. Perspective is emotional maturity in action. There's 6, embrace the pain of discipline over the pain of regret. Jim Rohn famously said, we must all suffer one of 2 pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is measured in ounces, small, manageable, temporary. The pain of regret is measured in tons, heavy, unmovable, lasting. Emotional discipline teaches you to choose the pain that shapes your future, not the one that shatters it. 7, let your values lead, not your emotions. When your emotions lead, you end up lost. When your values lead, you end up aligned. Disciplined people don't wake up asking, what do I want to do today? They wake up asking, what must I do today to honor the person I intend to become? Values over feelings, principles over impulses, character over convenience. That is emotional discipline. And once you master that, my friends, you unlock a level of stability, power, and clarity that very few people ever experience. Now, let's talk about one of the highest, most valuable forms of discipline you will ever develop, the discipline of character. Because discipline isn't just about what time you wake up or how many pages you read. It's not just routines and habits and schedules. Discipline, at its deepest level, is about becoming the kind of person who can be counted on first by yourself, then by others. Character is discipline made visible. Let me tell you something I learned early. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And you cannot become that person without character. You can't build a strong life on a weak foundation. You can't build a big future with a small sense of responsibility. And you can't build trust with others if you keep breaking trust with yourself. So, what is character? Character is keeping your word, especially to yourself. Character is doing what you said you would do long after the mood you said it in has faded. Character is choosing responsibility over excuses. Character is saying, if it is to be, it's up to me. Let's explore this deeply. 1. The discipline of keeping promises to yourself. There is nothing that destroys confidence faster than breaking promises to yourself. And nothing builds confidence faster than keeping them. You say you'll read, do it. You say you'll exercise, do it. You say you'll save money, do it. Not for the result, but for the identity it creates. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for the future self you want to become. Every time you break one, you cast a vote for the person you're trying to stop being. Discipline is simply the habit of voting wisely. 2. The discipline of honesty. Honesty isn't just about telling the truth, it's about living the truth. Being honest about your habits, your weaknesses, your excuses, your patterns, your potential. When you're honest with yourself, change becomes possible. When you lie to yourself, stagnation becomes permanent. Honesty is the mirror that allows discipline to do its work. 3. The discipline of responsibility. You know, when I was 25, I blamed everything. The government, the economy, taxes, my boss, my neighbors, the weather. Then one day, I realized a radical truth. I had never blamed myself. That was the day everything began to change. Responsibility is not the burden of discipline, it's the beginning of freedom. The moment you say, I am responsible, you also say, I am capable. The moment you stop waiting for others, you start becoming someone others can rely on. Responsibility is the birthplace of character. 4. The discipline of consistency. Character is not one big decision, it is 1,000 small ones, repeated. You don't become honest for an hour. You become honest for a lifetime. You don't become dependable for a day. You become dependable through the accumulation of consistent behavior. Consistency is the bridge between who you are and who you hope to become. 5. The discipline of humility. Humility says, I have more to learn. Discipline says, let me prove it. Humility says, I made a mistake. Discipline says, let me fix it. Humility says, I didn't know. Discipline says, let me grow. Humility keeps your character from becoming arrogance. Discipline keeps your humility from becoming weakness. The two work together beautifully. 6. The discipline of being useful. Jim Rohn loved to say, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Why? Because the more valuable you become, the more opportunities come your way. Character increases your value. Character makes you indispensable. Character makes you promotable. Character makes you trusted in business, in relationships, in leadership, in life. People don't follow charisma. They follow character. Charisma is a spark. Character is the fire that keeps burning. 7. The reward of character, influence, trust, and legacy. Disciplined character gives you something no hack, trick, or strategy can ever provide. Trust. Trust in your own ability. Trust from others. Trust from life itself. People will lend opportunities to someone they trust. People will follow someone they trust. People will invest in someone they trust. People will change because of someone they trust. When your character is disciplined, your influence expands without effort. Your presence becomes stronger. Your words carry weight. Your actions create proof. Your life becomes an example instead of a warning. Character is not expensive, but it pays the highest dividends. You want unstoppable discipline? Become a person of character. A person who can be trusted. A person who can be counted on. A person whose word means something. Because in the end, discipline is not just about accomplishment. Discipline is about becoming someone worthy of the life you desire. Now, let's talk about something every one of us has experienced. Losing discipline, falling off track, stumbling, slipping back into old habits. You start strong, you make progress, and then somewhere along the way, life happens. You get busy, you get tired, you get discouraged, and suddenly the routine that felt so solid feels like sand slipping through your fingers. Let me assure you of something. Losing discipline does not mean you're broken. It means you're human. Everybody falls. Everybody forgets. Everybody restarts. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful ones is simply this. Successful people begin again faster, lighter, without guilt. Jim Rohn said, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And that's the beauty of rebuilding discipline. You don't need perfection. You just need direction. Let's go through the principles that help you rebuild discipline every time life knocks it down. 1. Remove guilt. It has no value. Most people stay stuck not because they fell, but because they feel guilty that they fell. Guilt is a terrible coach. It beats you up, but it never lifts you up. It punishes you, but it never prepares you. Discipline doesn't grow in guilt, it grows in awareness. So the first step is simple. Let the guilt go. You missed a day. Fine. You missed a week. Fine. You fell off entirely. Fine. What matters is not where you were, it's what you decide right now. 2. Restart small much. Smaller than before. When people try to rebuild discipline, they usually try to start big again. They say, I'll do an hour at the gym, or I'll read 50 pages, or I'll wake up at 5 a.m. every day. That's not rebuilding, that's self-sabotage. The rule for rebuilding is, make the first step so small that you can't reasonably avoid it. Not an hour, 5 minutes. Not 50 pages, 2 pages. Not a perfect routine, one tiny action. Why small? Because when discipline is weak, momentum must be rebuilt. You're not trying to prove your strength. You're trying to prove your consistency. 3. Rebuild trust with one promise at a time. This may be the most important idea in this entire section. When you fall off, you don't just lose the habit, you lose trust in yourself. And trust is the foundation of discipline. So how do you rebuild it? Not with grand gestures, not with intense efforts, not with punishments. You rebuild trust one kept promise at a time. Make one small promise. Keep it. Make another. Keep it. Soon your identity shifts back. I'm a person who follows through. And once your identity shifts, discipline becomes natural again. 4. Identify the leak, not just the collapse. When discipline breaks, most people only notice the moment they fell. But the collapse didn't happen there. It happened before that moment. Maybe you lost sleep. Maybe your environment changed. Maybe you let one small exception slip. Maybe stress piled up. Maybe your expectations were unrealistic. To rebuild discipline, find the leak. Patch the leak. Then rebuild the structure. Awareness prevents repetition. 5. Lower the barrier, not the standard. When you restart, don't change the goal, change the entry point. Let's say your goal is to read every day. If you've fallen off, don't say, I'll read later. Say, I'll read 1 page now. 1 page keeps the identity alive. 1 page protects the standard. 1 page turns into 2, then 5, then 10. The goal stays the same, the doorway becomes smaller. That's how intelligent discipline works. 6. Add accountability. Even light accountability helps. Most people rebuild discipline faster with someone else watching. You don't need a drill sergeant, just a partner, a friend, a journal, a checklist, a simple tracking system. Accountability is not pressure. Accountability is support. Even a calendar with boxes you check off gives you momentum. Don't underestimate simple tools. They keep discipline alive on days motivation dies. 7. Celebrate the restart, not just the result. Most people celebrate only the achievement. Disciplined people celebrate the decision. Why? Because the restart is the hardest part. Once you begin again, the engine's running. The gears are turning. Momentum is building. So when you restart, say, good, I'm back. That's not pride. That's partnership with your future self. 8. Expect future setbacks. Build preparedness, not perfection. Let me give you a secret of disciplined people. They don't avoid setbacks. They prepare for them. They expect travel to disrupt routines. They expect stress to challenge consistency. They expect holidays to pull them off track. They expect life to happen. So instead of perfection, they plan recovery. They say, if I fall, Here's how I return quickly. That preparation turns setbacks into pauses, not endings. 9, remember, rebuilding is faster than building. Here's the encouragement. Every time you rebuild discipline, it returns stronger. You know the path. You know the pitfalls. You know the patterns. You know yourself. Rebuilding doesn't start from zero. It starts from experience. And experience is priceless. Discipline doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. You may fall 100 times, but if you get up 100 times, discipline grows. And eventually, the person you become is not someone who never falls, but someone who always rises. Now, as we come to the close of this journey together, let me bring you to a realization that took me years to understand. And when I understood it, everything changed. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. Discipline is the doorway to freedom. Most people get this backwards. They think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. But that kind of freedom leads to chaos. Chaos in your health, chaos in your finances, chaos in your time, chaos in your relationships. No structure means no stability. And without stability, you cannot grow. Real freedom, the kind that lasts, the kind that builds, the kind that elevates, comes only from discipline. Let me show you how this works. When you discipline your finances, you gain the freedom to live without fear. When you discipline your time, you gain the freedom to pursue your purpose. When you discipline your habits, you gain the freedom to trust yourself. When you discipline your emotions, you gain the freedom to stay steady in a storm. When you discipline your character, you gain the freedom to walk into any room with confidence. Discipline is not a cage. Discipline is the wings that allow you to rise above the life you've outgrown. And here's the beautiful part. There comes a day, quiet, subtle, almost unnoticed, when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. You wake up early not because you have to, but because that's who you are now. You follow through on commitments not because you're forcing yourself, but because your word means something to you. You do the work not because you're chasing approval, but because excellence has become your standard. That's the moment discipline becomes freedom. That's the moment your future opens. That's the moment the world feels different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And I want to leave you with this. Your life doesn't need a miracle. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It doesn't need luck or blessings from the universe or a sudden burst of genius. Your life needs one thing, a steady devotion to the person you are becoming. Discipline is devotion. Discipline is love for your future self. Discipline is respect for your own potential. Discipline is proof that you believe your life is worth building. So as you walk away today, I invite you to adopt one new discipline. Just one. Not 20, not 10. Just one. And keep it, protect it, honor it, repeat it, let it grow. Because that one discipline will become 2, and those 2 will become 5, and those 5 will shape a life you are proud to call your own. Remember, the rise does not demand a war cry. It begins with a posture. Shoulders soft, spine tall, eyes open. It begins with a single step, a single promise, a single moment of choosing your future over your impulse. And when that moment comes, and it will, step forward. Step with courage. Step with clarity. Step with devotion. Because if there is one risk you cannot afford, it is the risk of remaining who you were. When you are fully capable of becoming someone far greater, your discipline is not the end. Your discipline is the beginning of freedom, the beginning of confidence, the beginning of mastery, the beginning of a life lived on purpose. Set the sail. Discipline the emotions. Master the day. And let the winds of life carry you exactly where you decide to go